Hi guys, today is the 9th of April 2009 at 6 minutes past 11 in the evening over here in the UK. It has been a little while since my last video, and April the 13th is coming up. It's a watch day for me, particularly around the Mueller report release and possible missile launch, North Korea or Iran. Now, I've got a whole bunch of news reports up. I'm not going to go through all of them in depth. Mainly, I'm just going to be kind of pointing out the headlines and just kind of updating you guys as to what's going on if you're not already aware. So, North Korea has condemned its southern neighbor over its decision to deploy US-made 5th generation F-35A fighter jets. An online portal transmitting news from North Korea's Central News Agency has reported, calling on Seoul to consider the potential catastrophic consequences of the fighters' deployment in the region. The outlet stressed that this unfriendly act exacerbates military tensions on the Korean Peninsula and is a direct challenge to efforts to achieve peace. So we know that from our interpretation of the IPEC Go-To video, things are going to devolve on the Korean Peninsula at some point in the future. So all this talk of peace, I take it, and a lot of you guys as well, take it as just another narrative to this ongoing story that they're trying to portray, whereas it looks like peace and everyone kind of lets their guard down, then all of a sudden things are back up to level 10 and we're looking at peace and destruction all of a sudden. So that's kind of a sudden destruction theory coming from the Bible, but obviously that's just in one region. We've analyzed a lot globally and we're looking out for those kind of events. Obviously, with the North Korea situation, this is after the failed summit in Hanoi back in February, and also after we got the reports that North Korea was rebuilding and has now finished rebuilding a part of its launch site, which it began to dismantle during this whole air quotes peace negotiations process. So that's all with North Korea. And then not too long ago, I think it was about a month ago or a month and a half ago, there was the tensions between India and Pakistan involving the fighter jet and the fighter jets, their little air skirmish there, and the Indian pilot that was captured by Pakistan and then released. So all of that tension kind of calmed down after that, but we're now getting reports the Indian military may attack Pakistan sometime in less than 2 weeks, and this is coming from the Pakistani foreign minister, citing reliable intelligence. The two nuclear powers had a major flare-up of tensions in February. So that's what I was talking about. We had reliable intelligence that India is planning a new attack on Pakistan. As per our information, this could take place between April 16th and April 20th. And obviously, it's very specific in terms of timescale, but unlike our interpretations where we look at events and we look at possible dates where they could happen, this is coming from someone inside of a particular government. So keep an eye out for any tensions around that time. Obviously, with the timeline being released, it's possible it may not happen at all, or it could even be earlier. So keep an eye out for that, for any situations devolving between Pakistan and India that lead to renewed conflicts. The US is set to designate Iran as a Revolutionary Guard. Sorry, the US is to designate the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist group. I say that in past tense because the report, I was supposed to talk about it before today. Iran was threatening to retaliate if the US put Revolutionary Guards on a terrorist watch list. But as of today, the US has designated Iran, the Revolutionary Guard, as a terrorist organization, which just makes things a lot more difficult. You had the whole nuclear deal drawn out of that. You had the news about withdrawing a couple troops from Syria, all of the troops. Now some of the troops are staying. You've had the multiple attacks on the Iranian forces in Syria. The conversations around Iran blocking the Strait of Hormuz in retaliation for something. And, it may not be the situation that leads to Iran blocking the oil, but it's certainly not helping dissuade Iran from doing that. And obviously, in my opinion, it makes it more likely that at some point in the future, for all these things that keep coming, Iran is going to respond. They've got their new submarine. They've got the ability to block the Strait of Hormuz. They've done drills around doing that last year and this year. So there's a lot of, as per usual with these videos, there's a lot of things to watch out for, a lot of things that look like they're on edge. But especially with Iran, a lot of things are going down at the moment. Obviously, after the United States designated the Iran Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist group, Iran leaders are warning the United States that there will be serious repercussions. In what form those repercussions come, I'm not exactly sure yet, but keeping our eyes open. This is as Iranian lawmakers are chanting "Death to America." Now, "Death to America" is a phrase widely used in the Middle East, but not often does it come from lawmakers themselves. It's usually from like the public and demonstrations, political groups. So having it directly from lawmakers puts more pressure on people like the president, Hassan Rouhani, to actually do something that is seen as pushing back against the United States. And obviously there was the reports, I think I brought out last month, of the potential for ISIS attacks or terrorist attacks across Europe. And, you know, all of that could be linked back to Iran. And that's another thing I'm looking out for, particularly an attack in the UK that leads to blame on Iran, thereby bolstering even more the global condemnation of that particular country. And such an attack may have an effect on the royal family, or could even, you know, involve the Israeli embassy, as they have practiced in, I think it was 2015, I can't remember right now. But this is all seems to be linked to Netanyahu, as all of this does appear to be, especially since he's coming up for re-election in the next couple of days. All of these things, like designated Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist group, stating Jerusalem as Israel's capital, stating the Golan Heights as Israel's, and then even looking at the West Bank, it's all in supporting Benjamin Netanyahu himself. It's not as if it's really supporting Israel, because I mean, the more things that you kind of give to Israel is the more hate that is thrown at Israel. So it kind of just puts them in a more tenuous situation. All of this is to bolster Benjamin Netanyahu, who may win re-election. Obviously, I don't believe elections are a fair process, a true fair process for the people to actually decide who they want to represent them. It's all just a monopoly and a game for them to make it look like we have choice when really everything is orchestrated. So keep an eye on anything that is given to Benjamin Netanyahu, not to Israel, but to Benjamin Netanyahu specifically, because it all does seem to be putting Israel in a more tenuous situation. Excuse me. And Iran news: Iran carrier begins direct flights to Venezuela. So this is just another indication that the relationship between Venezuela and Iran, Venezuela and Russia, Venezuela and China is just becoming stronger under the Maduro presidency or leadership. And that just makes it more difficult for someone like Juan Guaido, who's backed by the United States and other countries around the world, to actually take power in Venezuela. And obviously Venezuela is another oil-rich country, but they are having a lot of humanitarian issues at the moment. So with Iran beginning carrier flights there, I don't see it as like commercial flights for passengers and tourists and holidays. It's not exactly the spot for a holiday at the moment. So more likely direct flights to Venezuela, just like Russia and China, will have some sort of military component, which is obviously going to be highly contentious for someone like, or for a country or like the United States, especially considering the vicinity. We've seen obviously naval build up in that area. In the event of, you know, catastrophe, it'd be pretty easy to get those naval assets into the Gulf of Mexico. And obviously we've got situations around the border and everything going on, so there's a lot to watch and a lot to report on. But it all does seem to be just building continuously. And this is as the US and Israel prepare for a coordinated campaign against Iranian forces. Again, that's probably going to be in Syria, maybe in Iraq. Highly unlikely it will be directly against Iran, but at some point that is going to happen. So it's something to keep our eyes on, in case efforts like this snowball into something much, much bigger. and then you've got the floods that are happening in Iran. So there's a lot happening with Iran and in Iran. The floods kind of remind me of the situation we see in the iPad Go 2 video, where we have the crying woman, the dead child, the volcanic eruption in the background, or the nuclear explosion, whichever way you prefer to see it, and the flooding that we have there. So, along with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard being designated as a terrorist group, the flooding and the potential for repercussions being even more likely this week than they were last week, it seems as if we might have something to watch for in connection with the iPad Go 2 video. Obviously, as I said, the 13th is a watch day for me. Does seem to be connected to a couple of points in that particular video, and all these events are just building, so it's, you know, it's a possibility, which is what I'm presenting to you today. And obviously, in amongst all of that is Brexit. So April the 12th, in just 3 days' time, we will see whether the UK leaves the EU with or without a deal. Now, I don't see a possibility of having a... Sorry, let me just start again. There is no possibility of having a deal before April the 12th. So in this case, we are relying on the EU leaders to grant a further extension to Article 50. And the EU leaders are meeting on April the 10th, which is tomorrow. And we will see if they agree to give an extension. The likelihood is they will, but it requires every single member to agree. And it could just be that one member doesn't agree, and then all of a sudden, April 12th, we're leaving the EU without a deal, which again, I think may be connected to the iPad Go 2 video. I'm just going to quickly bring it up because I want to just have something to show at the same time I'm talking about it. I'll do that, and do that. Okay, so just here on the shark, I pointed out before, but the head makes up the pound coin, just kind of like pound coin symbol, sorry, kind of like tilted to its side. So just from here, follow it down to the bottom and the line across. Obviously, if you're not familiar with the pound coin symbol, just check it out on Google. You can see that it's pretty much, it's the same shape. But then you might also have a reference to the number 12, where you've got the 1 making up, coming out of the part of the pound coin symbol, and the mouth, which has the number 2 in it. There's many different numbers in there. You know, you can make 7 and 7 out of the tail. You've got the number 3 on the back here. So there's a lot of numbers encoded into the shark. And one of those numbers I'm looking at, because we have the potential date of the 12th of April being Brexit Day, could be a 12 in there and a connection to the pound coin. So as I say, if we crash out of the EU without a deal on April the 12th, that's certainly going to affect the pound coin. And then we've got the 13th, well, possible reference to the number 13 up here, possible reference to an A, you know, it could also be a D, it could be a W, and M, and again, just many different things encoded into one. It's just, how do you interpret it, how do you break it down and make sense of it? I do it by presenting all the theories that I see, one after the other. So I'm looking out for the 13th in this month, see if there's a missile launch of some kind. Obviously, there's the potential with North Korea having the whole situation with the F-35 fighter jets being sold to South Korea, and them seeing that as, you know, provocation. There was obviously the breakdown of the communications between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, so potential for missile launch from them. Situation with Iran, you just had them designate the Revolutionary Guard as terrorists. You've obviously got more tension building up there, so it's another possibility that they could launch a missile as some sort of message to the rest of the world, you know. So keep an eye out for all of that. And obviously, in amongst that, I think the Mueller report's going to come out. There may be some information related to the dossier. Don't know, but I'm just giving you my ideas and my interpretations. That is everything I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you were able to follow it all. There was a lot, but just for a quick recap, look out for, keep an eye on North Korea, Pakistan, and India, Iran, Syria, the United States, Israel, Venezuela, China, and Russia. Yeah. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.